The Michigan Avenue African American Heritage Corridor has been a gateway to Buffalo's past by playing host to a number of highly significant vestiges, yet the memory of one, which no longer stands, is revered as the crown jewel of Michigan Avenue. That is none other than Anne Montgomery's Little Harlem Hotel. Now, the Little Harlem did not exactly begin as the Little Harlem. There were a few transitions along the way. Shortly after arriving in Buffalo in 1910, Anne Montgomery purchased property at both 494 and 496 Michigan Avenue and first opened an ice cream parlor, and later on an Oriental billiard parlor, followed by a supper club, and by 1934, a cabaret-style nightclub, which would finally be converted into what we all know as the Little Harlem Hotel. Now, this would incidentally come right at the end of the Prohibition era. Among the features of the Little Harlem were the Oriental murals and Japanese lanterns, which were designed by Paul Campella, who was also the designer of Shea's Buffalo Theater. Over time, Little Harlem would be among the premier hotspots in the city of Buffalo, as it was not only a host to a myriad of some of the most legendary entertainers of the 20th century, it was also known for its many cabarets, which were enjoyed by the patrons, taking place right there on the showroom floor. It should also be noted that Anne Montgomery was early on married to Dan Montgomery, who ran Dan Montgomery's Hotel and Restaurant located at 158 Exchange Street. She would later marry Paul Woodson, who operated the nightclub even after Anne's death in 1978. Here are reflections from Mr. Paul Woodson.
Anne told me years ago that when I first met her, she said that Paul Whiteman had come down there, and Martha Ray came in. As people would play at the town casino and the bars and the theaters up and down Main Street, they would come to Little Harlem at nighttime after the show was over, and they'd come to the cabaret. During the time that I was there, we used to have different women's clubs would come in and rent the back room for Saturday night or Sunday night, and they would put on a cabaret. Most of your notable people, politicians and educators and whatnot, came through there. There's any number of entertainers: Sammy Davis, Lena Horne, Ella Fitzgerald was there, Cab Calloway. He would do an engagement in Buffalo or maybe even in Toronto. He would come back through here and stop at Little Harlem. King Cole was a very congenial person. He's an easy mixer. He blended right in with everybody, you know. And Sammy Davis was the same way. He'd come in. He liked Chinese food. At that time, we had a Chinese chef there, and he liked Chinese food. We did have a very good kitchen there for a while. You try to compare these prices with today's prices, and you were saying they were just giving food away in those days. During those days, they used to have people lined up out on the sidewalk trying to get in the cabaret on the weekends for the entertainment back there. We had an 8-piece band in the back room, and we were very rigid on controlling the behavior of people in there. So they felt when they came into Little Harlem, they felt safe. Of course, we had number 4 police station right across the street, so that helped out.
Woodson would operate the historic venue until selling it in the late 1980s to Wilbur Trammell. Tragically, in 1993, the Little Harlem was destroyed in a 2-alarm blaze caused by a grease fire that began in a second-floor rear apartment. The damage was estimated at $150,000, and the building was demolished soon thereafter. Although it no longer stands and is now represented by only a historical marker, the spirit of Anne Montgomery's Little Harlem continues to loom large over the Michigan Avenue African American Heritage Corridor.